Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is your host with the most, Griever, as always, bringing you guys the latest chapter review for Akatsuki no Yona, also known as Yona of the Dawn. Yona of the Dawn, chapter 238, entitled The Ruler of the Battlefield. Great chapter. Surprising chapter. Don't think anybody called this. It was all doom and gloom at the end of chapter 237, and we have just turned the tables here in chapter 238. The true ruler of the battlefield is our princess, back in full form at the end of the chapter, saying, "Let's punch Chago right in that smug face of his." And I'm here for it. I am absolutely here for it. Now, I did have a couple of problems. With this chapter, but nothing game-breaking, nothing like too major, right? This chapter was quite good because, number one, the only complaint I could see potentially people thinking about is, remember back in the Zing Kingdom arc, and the dragons were down, and Yona was in danger and stuff, and the mystical, magical form of actual dragons, like this ethereal thing, came out of the dragon's spirit and actually attacked. Remember that? It wasn't just an aura. They actually physically manifested these dragon spirits because they threatened Yona. Here's the deal, is that in this chapter, a similar situation does occur. A similar situation does happen. And the reason I'm going to say that we still got the very angry looks, and it's like, why? Why do bad guys insist on pissing off the people that can the magical people that can kill you and will not think twice after threatening who you just threatened? You captured them, they don't really have any animosity towards you, and then you just made them want a chance at your throat, which they never had before. I never will understand that, the cockiness of some villains. But Chago threatened Yona. Okay, the chapter is pretty straightforward, right? Yona is working with Kaji. We don't really actually continue on with the Kija and Hawk stuff. We see a couple of quick panels of Hawk tending to Kija's wounds, and that's it. And then hearing about this execution thing that goes down in the later half of the chapter. But the Dromos catch up to Kaji, the useless character himself, and Yona. And at the time, I was thinking, okay, are the Dromos who we know them to be at the end of the chapter, or are these actual Dromos? I'm going to go out on a limb and say these are the actual Dromos, given their speech patterns, their conversation and stuff that went down, and that we didn't see what transpired between that scene and, of course, the end of the chapter. And we'll talk about that, but to get the interrogation thing out of the way. So Yona is captured. She's a hostage now, and the dragons even bring up the fact, and we'll talk about this, the fact that they were captured so easily. They're sort of not fourth wall breaking technically, but Zeno even brings it up, like, really? How did we get here? Like, Green Dragon? Seriously? Really? And it's like, yeah, no shit. We all complained. I certainly complained. You all know that, about the dragons being captured so easily. And well, what ends up happening here, as I said, this whole interrogation scene happens, and Yona is then captured and showcased to the dragons, and Chago threatens her and says, "What if I just took the head of the princess?" Sort of idea. And we see the threat, the absolute danger, the "fuck you, I'll kill you" look on Shina, jae-ha, and Zeno's face, right? And I mean, really? You want to go and try that again? Because I'm pretty sure Zeno could just keep killing himself. Zeno could just keep biting his tongue, killing himself, and then he can break out at any time. There is no danger. And Shina is slowly but surely just going to recover his eye powers, and then you're screwed, right? So there is that. This guy is not thinking things all the way through. The reason that the Zing Kingdom, the whole reason I talked about this is the fact that the Zing Kingdom arc, when that dragon manifestation happened, and when it happens here, is the fact that Chago had no actual intention, and subconsciously they knew that. They knew it was a threat, but an idle threat, an empty threat. Chagol was not going to slit Yona's throat right then and there. There was no bloodlust, there was no aggression, there was no intention to do so, and as a result, the dragons did not manifest. Of course, you could argue that they weren't passed out and stuff, but I found the situations incredibly similar. I saw a few people on Reddit saying, like, why didn't they just summon those things? Like, Yona's life was in danger. I don't think it was actually, it was the hanging in the air. It was sort of just, ha ha ha, look, I do have a knife and I could use it on Yona. I'm not going to, but I'm just letting you know her life is in my hands right now. That pissed them off, but there was no actual intention to hurt Yona in that situation by Chagol, and hence the subconscious or the ethereal, the physical manifestation of the dragons would not have come forth at that. And plus they were like clearly conscious and awake and stuff, so there were a few things. But I did see a few people on Reddit after I read this chapter talk about this and wonder why that didn't happen. So I hope anybody who was wondering, they are two very different situations, so it's not exactly like, you know, 1 and 2 the exact same. That is what it is, but it's still a great scene, still a cool scene. Chagol is there being his usual cocky ass self. There is a second scene that I actually enjoyed because Yona is what Mei Nian should be and what Chagol expected from her, and backhands Yona to get out of my way and stuff, and Yona just glare like, I'm not taking your shit. And Chagol, wait a minute, what? And it's like, okay, cool. So Yona standing up, Yona being back in full form. That's what makes this chapter so good as well, because it's a very Yona and Chagol central chapter. She gives her the medicine about the Crimson Dragon illness, yada yada yada, Yon, and stuff like that. And there's this whole scene. The big thing to take away is that she's going to be executed, right? Yona's going to be executed in front of everyone to make a public display. Chagol as a villain being incredibly smart. You cannot take that away from him. Chagol is actually being incredibly intelligent. Like, I could potentially win this war through military might, but if I don't have to, why would I have this war go 6 months when I can end it in 6 weeks? Like, why would I do that? I'm not a warmonger for the sake of it. I want to win the battle by any means I can do so. He understands politics. He understands religion. He understands morality. He understands all that stuff. And he knows that the head of the dragon is Yona. If I take the dragons and I take Yona and the entire army of Koka Kingdom crumbles overnight. And that's just a fact. He's not wrong. He is absolutely not wrong. And the fact that he knows that makes him an intelligent villain. Now, when he brings up the execution, he wants soo-won to show up and stuff, and he doesn't even expect soo-won to show up. He's like, he's not going to show up, but this is going to happen. And he apparently has every intention of shooting Yona. Yona is there tied to the post, and is going to be shot, and all this stuff. And it's just like, wait a minute now, like, what's going down? Hawk knows about it. I wonder where Hawk was hiding. Here's the thing. Chapter 238, really cool what's about to happen, but we have a lot of questions to be asked. Like, we see Ki-sok very pissed off at, like, the situation has gone from bad to worse. It's the worst possible situation right now. We see Jo-do being very pissed off and wishing, of course, he could protect. Because remember, before he was protecting soo-won, he's still the protector of Yona. He still looks out for Yona, and he's frustrated at this. Soo-won doesn't really say anything. You know, we do get a quick scene. But clearly soo-won is not going to show up. I was actually looking forward. I thought soo-won was going to show up alone, like they intended, because Chagol said there's no way the king's going to show up, and I would love to see him show up, because soo-won had this whole... It would fit soo-won as a character to show up, and I was kind of hoping for it, but I really like the fact that not only did soo-won, even though that was what I initially thought, I was very surprised, I think everybody was surprised, by the ending here of the chapter. Mei Nian tells Chagol to go to hell, you asshole. I will kill me first, but I will come from the afterlife and I will kill you, you know, and stuff like that. And Chagol is actually not to take him back, but it's like, this is his kitten. This is the one that told him, hey, you got to pay for the show, asshole. That's the sort of person, like, to a degree, you have to give a level of, not respect, that's not the right word, but Chagol is much more than just being evil for the sake of being evil. He's not one-dimensional in his evil ways. He is a dick, he is an asshole, he is a piece of shit, all these things. But he does have an actual more than a one-dimensional character, and there is some pull because of that. It's not about approving what he does, but he wants Mei Nian to be what she's always been. He doesn't like her being the cowering kitten. He wants to see the tiger, right? For good intentions or bad intentions or whatever, or reasons, he wants Mei Nian to stand up, sort of idea, for his own twisted reasons, but still wants her, and I think everybody wants that. Right? So the fact that Mei Nian is like, no, Yona's been so good to me, I will not let a friend of Yona's down, blah, 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 kill me too, all this stuff. And this is where Yona finally says, like, Mei Nian, it's all right. And boom, the ropes are gone. And I was like, wait, what? And then we see that the Dromos that were standing beside Chagol, are actually two of the stars of the Zing Kingdom. Let's go. And I was like, holy shit. And he said, let's go punch Chagol in the face. Feel pretty good, wouldn't it? And I'm like, hell yes. So the reason this chapter is so good is that ending. And there's a couple reasons as to why. Number one is the fact that Chagol gets the surprise. Chagol's not just winning, because a problem I've had is the fact that Chagol hasn't really had... These Dromos are inconsistent. We'll talk about that. But these Dromos seem to always get the upper hand. They haven't won a single skirmish or fight or clash with Chagol to date. And that just doesn't make sense in the long run. Like, these are the dragons. This is Hawk. This is Yona back in full form. These are the stars of the Zing Kingdom. Like, this is a powerhouse party. This is like having 6 legendary Pokemon on your team. It doesn't matter how underleveled or level balanced it is. They're still legendary goddamn Pokemon, right? So it's like, wait a minute now. Why do we keep losing? Why are we losing every match? This makes no sense. So for once, we get a sweet-ass W. Comes out of nowhere, which I love the shock value. It shocked me. I hope it shocked you guys. Because great way to... Wait, the ropes are gone? Wait, the Dromos aren't actually the Dromos? Wait a minute. And it's like, okay, this is cool. I like this. And let's go punch Chagol in the face. Let's go. Yona getting out of this and having a plan the whole time, being it's impossible to fight you, but I can be your hostage. It was all a ploy. It was a plot. It was covert operation, Black Ops time. And I like it. I really like it. Now, here's where the big reason to enjoy this is not only the shock and not the fact that they're about to get an upper hand on Chagol, but Yona did this. You can argue Yona did this with help, but Yona did not rely, for once. This is a big thing, because remember, Yona is a hero in her own right. We don't see that very often because we have the dragons and Hawk, and they're her shield, so to speak. They're her sword and her shield. Yona's not supposed to have to do anything. But in certain situations, it's good to see that she stands on her own 2 feet. Hawk didn't come to the rescue in time. The dragons aren't here to rescue her this time. Soo-won, as I said, I would have liked to see Soo-won show up and what he would say, but Soo-won didn't show up to save her. She saved herself. She created a plan. She got the stars involved, which, once again, still had help, but I guarantee you, she was the one to enlist it. She was the one to plan it all out. It really showcases that she, in her own right, can stand on her own 2 feet, is her own hero, and she doesn't, I guess, the whole thing, I don't need no man, I'm a strong, independent woman, and this is what we're talking about, not all this, stuff that happens, everyone, I'm a strong, independent woman, I don't need no man. No, Yona is proving, like, yeah, she's not just talking that talk, she's walking that goddamn walk, in a sense, you know what I mean? And I like it, because we know that Yona is not, she is strong, and she is independent. She relies on her friends in a very give and take type of relationship. She's not, she was a dependent, and she still relies on them, and it's okay to be a dependent at times. It's just not okay to be a dependent 100% of the time, and this is showcasing that in a great way. She's standing on her own as a character, as a person, as a woman. It all works out fantastically, in my opinion. 238 doing a lot of things behind the scenes. If you really read into the situation, this is great. The Hawk didn't come to save her. The dragons didn't come to save her. Soo-won did not come to save her. She saved herself with her own ingenuity and her own plan. We haven't seen Yona to that degree since this arc started. We have not seen old Yona back, and now she's back, and this is fan-damn-tastic. That's all. Like, it's absolutely great. My problem with the chapter, though. So that's the review, pretty much, and I'm just gonna wrap it up here. I do have a bit of a problem with the chapter, though. Is the Dromos power scaling inconsistency. Now, I've already complained about this ever since the Dromos showed up. You guys know, a lot of you know, and a lot of you don't like it too. Well, some of you agree with me that the Dromos are too powerful. I would argue they're not only too powerful, they're power inconsistent. They are very inconsistent in their power because, and this chapter really showcased that. If no other chapter you can make an excuse for, you cannot make an excuse for this one. And the reason I'll tell you that is, okay, the Dromos were there. Let's assume for a moment, it doesn't matter which situation, but remember the two Dromos show up to capture Yona and Kaji. Let's assume that those are the two stars, right? Let's assume it's the two stars right there in disguise. That still means that they defeated two of the Dromos and took their clothes. Now let's assume that those were two Dromos who came and captured Yona and Kaji, and there's a scene in between that we do not see. And, of course, between that scene and now the end of the chapter, where the two stars notice Yona's being captured, they go fight and beat up the two Dromos. In either situation, one of the two had to be the case. There's no third option with this. And because they are wearing the Dromos clothes and they were captured, so you don't really have a way around this, the Dromos did indeed get defeated 1v1 by the stars. Now, that is a bit of an issue when you consider Hyo-ri, when the Dromos were first introduced. That's a bit of an issue. That's a hard pill to swallow. It's also a hard pill to swallow to see the Dromos defeating the dragons and technically defeating the dragons, defeating Hyo-ri, defeating, and winning these fights, right? So there is some power scaling inconsistency. Because not that the stars are weak, but these guys have been running all over all the top players of the Yona of the Dawn, of the Koka Kingdom crew. And now I'm supposed to believe, once again, the Zing Kingdom fighters are good. They're even great, but they're not stronger than Zeno. They are not stronger than Hawk, and they are not stronger than Hyo-ri. So, a little bit of inconsistency there, that they seem to be there with no injuries, took their places, and boom, now we get this great thing. So even though this chapter is fantastic, and I love the shock and I love the surprise, I know we have to have villains that feel like a threat and are scary, but they came out of nowhere, and I'm still not a huge fan of the Dromos, because now not only are they just out of nowhere and supposedly the strongest characters ever, now they're all of a sudden not, because they can be 1v1'd seemingly quite easily by the stars in their own camp, in their own base. So, little issue, little nitpick with the chapter. Once again, this is a shoujo manga, not shonen, so power scaling, of course, is not near at the forefront of anyone's mind when reading this series, but it does come into effect when you have a swords and romance story, right? If this was a high school drama romance story, totally different, ball game, but it's not. It's similar to Sailor Moon and stuff like that. There's a supernatural element. There is a battle. There is a little bit of a shonen element in the fact that it's still adventure, it's still battle, it's still martial arts, whatever genre you want to call it. That's still a case here and still involved. There are superpowers, there's military, there's fighting, so power scaling is always going to be there. And the inconsistency of the Dromos power seems to be a little to suit the plot, and it's a lot of plot armor and plot convenience just to get us where we're going. Bit of an issue there, but it still doesn't really take away from the greatness that 238 is. I still love this chapter. Its pacing was great. Got a lot of fun scenes. The dragons being pissed off, acknowledging that we're captured. How the hell did that happen? You know, seeing the reaction of soo-won, Kisok, and everybody. Seeing Yona talking with Chao-gol and all that stuff. Coming up with this plan, the surprise, the big surprise at the end. It's all greatness. I really like the chapter. What did you guys think? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. And we will be back here for the next exciting chapter of Yona of the Dawn. Yona of the Dawn, chapter 239. I will certainly be here to read it because some great things about to go down. Someone please get Chao-gol right in the face, that bald-headed fuck. Somebody hit him. All right. That's it for me, guys. We'll see you back here next time. Have a good one. Sayonara.